Hello, and welcome back to the SIP. I'm this year's host, Amy Jo, and I'm the science communication intern this year. Today, we're going to be talking a little bit about herpetology with John and his project over the summer. So we invite you all to grab your tea and join us on your break. John's got a little frog.
Yes, cute little Hyperolius tamensis, which is the genus of frogs I'll be studying this summer.
Lovely. Great. So do you want to start by introducing yourself with your pronouns, name, school, and your major?
Yeah, so I'm John Wynn. I go by he, him, his, and I'm currently studying environmental biology at Columbia University.
Great. Awesome. And what are you researching over the summer?
Yeah, so this summer I'll be working with Dr. Raina Bell in herpetology, and I'm studying African reef frogs. So the genus is Hyperolius, and I'm studying reef frogs from Bioko Island, which is an island in the Gulf of Guinea archipelago. It's like off the coast of Equatorial Guinea in Africa.
Mm.
And I'm seeing if two frogs, let's see, go back here. Yeah. So I'm basically seeing if two frogs in the Hyperolius genus, Hyperolius ocellatus and Hyperolius, I'm blanking here, Hyperolius anjami are hybridizing. So what that means is hybridization is a process where two species that are genetically different interbreed. So this is a little graphic here that shows a study by Dr. Bell. And on this island here, you can see the bigger island is Sao Tome, which is not Bioko. Bioko is the one circled or squared in red there. But this study was done in Sao Tome and Principe. And basically, in the study, she found that Tamensis and Malarai, which are two other species in the genus, are hybridizing in this area where it's transitioning from an agricultural field to a primary forest. And so frog species in this little area where the circles and squares are sort of like two colored there, those are like hybrids. And yeah, I'm basically doing the same process with two different species.
Okay, cool. And so hybridizing is when there's two species mixing, and how would these two species be hybridizing? And what does that look like?
Hmm. Yeah. Um, okay, I can go to this other slide here, which shows the species that I will be working with this summer. So there's first H. njami, and you can see there's like one male and then also two females, two like kinds of females, and then on the bottom there's H. ocellatus and then the female one. And so these frogs hybridize. Um, they can hybridize basically in areas where they're sympatric. So symmetry is when two different species are found in the same location, so their distribution is sort of overlapped, and that overlap can sort of cause like interbreeding and mixing of genetic material. And so that's sort of one way. And a lot of this can also happen with like geographical barriers that pop up. So like one species could be separated by like a mountain that arises, and then that population is sort of separated, and then from there it could like interbreed with other species, and then sort of become a hybrid from there.
So what's the geographical barrier with these frogs?
So not entirely sure, but I know in this area it's very it has like a lot of active volcanoes, so that's possibly one thing that could be like affecting their habitat distribution and like changing where they live. Yeah, but that's like the extent of my knowledge on that.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. It's very interesting. What is the most exciting thing you've learned about your frogs over the summer, over this period?
Ooh, that's a good question. Okay, I probably the most interesting thing about Hyperolius is that many species in the genus are actually sexually dichromatic. So this is a good slide to look at to explain that. And sexual dichromatism is where two sexes of the same species are different in coloration. So a good example is in the ocelotus male and female. If you look at the male, it's sort of like, the typical frog, like green color, but the female is like very interesting, right? It's like a different
Mm.
color, it has like flecks all across its back. And it's really interesting because sexual dichromatism is kind of rare for frogs and toads. Only about 2% of species have sexual dichromatism. So yeah.
Oh, that's very interesting. Um, does the fact that they're on an island mean they're more likely to be dichromatic? Am I saying that correctly?
Yeah, yeah. Um, hmm. I don't think I know like exact answer to that, but there's a lot of interesting case studies on islands. So this genus in general is just not very well studied. So it's a potential that um, sort of like isolation could be creating this like distinct like variation in coloration, but we're still sort of unsure about that.
Okay. Yeah, maybe we'll find out this summer. Great. Um, oh, Gwen says these frogs are so interesting and beautiful to look at. Sweet.
Yeah, they really are.
Um, yeah, they're great. Um, I wanted to ask, when you were a child, did you think you would grow up to be a scientist, or was that always your thought?
I would definitely not. um, I for the longest time I wanted to be an artist.
Mm,
So like up until middle school, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna like paint and draw. Um, and I just really enjoyed like coloring and making little drawings and doodles. And I think now that's sort of like you can still like sort of see that sort of passion that I have for art. Um, and now I'm just trying to sort of incorporate it into like the science that I'm doing. So
mm,
like making once like for instance like making like really good visuals or um, trying to make really complex scientific concepts more accessible to the public by like um, presenting it in a way that's like visually appealing, but also like easy to understand, right? Pictures speak a thousand
mm,
words. So um, yeah, just using like graphic design and like art to make science more easily accessible.
mm. Nice. And in working in environmental science, I think having those skills to do like graphic design is really useful. Have you used them yet while in school?
Ooh, I mean, I've made like graphs in R, I guess. Um, you could argue that's sort of artsy.
Mm,
um, but yeah, not really, but I'm looking forward to doing that this summer.
mm. Some frog themed graphs and posters will
Yeah,
be will be in our
lovely, cute frog graphs.
yeah, great. Great. And what was the moment when you realized that you wanted to pursue environmental science um, in lieu of maybe that like more artistic career?
hmm so I grew up in Atlanta, which is very, big city life, not really a lot of nature around to see. And it wasn't until I moved to the Appalachian Mountains, which was that first picture that we saw on the screen. And there I sort of like dived
You
into my
wanted
interest
Chicago too?
in environmental science. Yeah, I can show the picture. Yeah, gorgeous picture of the Appalachians here, my home. And this place is like a very biodiverse place. It's my county that I live in is classified as like a temperate rainforest. It's like the only one east of the Mississippi, which is really cool. And so it gives way to a lot of like really biodiverse and endemic species. And just like being surrounded and immersed by like the natural world around me, I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm asking so many questions about like, what is this thing in my backyard? Like, what is this flower? Like, was a salamander? um, and I think that's sort of how I became interested in environmental science or biology.
Fun. Do you have memories of, like you said, you mentioned like going to check out salamanders and different wildlife. Do you have any memories doing that you want to share?
Yeah, yeah. I went on this little trip one day with a park ranger, and he's like sort of a salamander expert in the area, a local expert. And it's funny because his car says like Sal Whisper on the back, which I thought was funny.
Mm.
And so we went out on the weekend to look for endangered green salamanders, and they're really cute, like black and green salamander species that's found in the Appalachian and in a really small disjunct population in my county. Um, and so we're taking like his 4-wheel drive, like through like unpaved paths, like looking for salamanders, and it just felt like an Indiana Jones movie, like super nerdy. And I think that's like partly why I am like so interested in herpetology. But yeah, that was a really cool experience to see like, and I actually got to hold one. um, but yeah, that was a cool day.
Awesome. So, are you more interested in doing field work in the future after that experience?
Ooh, I do love field work, but ideally it'd sort of be like a mix between field work and lab work. Don't get me wrong, I love being outside and like, going on adventures and hikes and trips. Um, but I don't know about you, but like it just looks, I mean, it also feels like just very like physically stressing. So um, I want to like enjoy that part and then like step back a little and like look at my samples in the lab. You know what I mean?
Mhm. Yeah, it kind of seems like that's what we're doing this summer is a little bit in the field and some back in the lab doing research. So,
Right.
good mix. Mm. And then I had one last question. If you have like a moment you might realize, when you're in a zoo or museum, perhaps when you realized that you really wanted to pursue science or biology,
Mm. A moment in a museum.
or in in nature. It doesn't specifically have to
Nature.
be
Okay.
a museum.
Yeah. Probably stepping foot into the American Natural History Museum in New York City was a really like sort of life-changing experience for me.
Mm.
Like as soon as you step in, there's this like massive skeleton of like a dinosaur, just like hello, and like you're surrounded by like hundreds of millions of like species in there, and it just sort of like hits you that like all life on Earth is sort of connected in a way, and like you sort of like start to think about how you're connected to the specimens on the wall or like the Australopithecus, you know, first human sort of exhibit. And I think that's when I sort of realized that like this kind of work that I'm doing at Academy is sort of something that I want to like pursue and like explore a little bit more.
Mm. Nice. And a fun question. What's your favorite exhibit at Cal Academy that you've seen?
Ooh,
I know
the
we might
jellyfish
have.
exhibit.
Oh, the jellyfish.
Yes, it's like it's literally just like like one tank, but like I could stand there forever. It's like
Mm,
a screensaver, like a moving screensaver.
mm,
But that's probably my favorite.
nice. And what are you looking forward to most moving forward this summer? And we've got the rest of July. And what are you looking forward to most in your work, or for trips that are upcoming?
Mm, hmm Well, definitely looking forward to getting out more. The trip to Costa Noa in a few days, and also just learning more about kind of like the intersection of like publicity work, kind of like connecting research done like in a lab to like information that actually reaches the public, since like we work in a museum and a lot of that information that scientists do is sort of like kept in like the community of scientists, but like in a museum there's that like ongoing exchange of information between like the visitors and also the researchers that are working here. So I think just like getting to like do the amazing research that we're doing, but also getting to communicate that to the people that are coming to visit the academy.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's very, very exciting. I'm looking forward to seeing how you can like intersect your own art with your project, with your reed frogs, and communicating that to the public as we move forward. All right. Thank you so much, John. And to everyone else, we'll be back next week with another intern. Thank you. Bye,
Thank you.
John.